Hi, everyone. I'm Allen Huntsman, and this is the Dark Sire's Creative Nook on YouTube. Today, I am here with Dan Klefstad, the author of FIONA'S GUARDIANS. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Alan, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Awesome, thank you. So give us a bit of background about yourself. What inspired you to get into writing and the type of writing you enjoy?
Well, I sort of write every day for my job. I'm a morning host at an NPR news station in DeKalb, and so every day I write and edit, and that muscle's being flexed. But I do eventually. I have an imagination, and it likes to wander. And sometimes you hear the news and you think, boy, this story would have been a lot more interesting if this happened. And so when I get home, I can sort of let my imagination wander and write fiction, which I really enjoy doing. I've been doing it for a long time, longer than I've been in news. And I guess I can go all the way back to when I was a kid watching monster films, or TV shows. Dracula was on TV in the Chicago area on Saturday matinees or whatever. And so I would watch Bela Lugosi and later Christopher Lee. And then Stephen King's book Salem's Lot was turned into a three-part TV series in 1979. And that terrified me. And I have always thought, gosh, I would love to be able to write a vampire story. And in the end, I wrote something very different from Salem's Lot. My story is about humans who work for a beautiful, manipulative vampire named Fiona.
And it's a really unique, cool angle you took with this book. Go ahead and tell us about this book, its plot and such.
Right. So Fiona is about 250 years old. She needs 10 pints of human blood a night to survive, and so she literally that's the thing that she thinks about all the time is, how do I get this blood? Kind of like you and I might think, oh, what am I cooking for dinner again tonight? But over the years, she's gotten a little bit more sophisticated. She realized that just leaving a trail of bodies would invite murder police coming to her door during the daytime when she's asleep, and she wants to avoid that, obviously. So over the decades, she got creative and asked or hired people to procure blood for her. And when blood donation became a thing in the 1920s, suddenly she got the idea to have people on the inside of hospitals who would steal a little bit of blood at a time, not enough to be noticed, and then sell it to her designated representative, her guardian or main guardian, Daniel, who has built up a big network of people inside hospitals who supply and sell blood to Fiona. She prefers O negative, so this gets expensive when you're looking for a specific type of blood. And she also has a lot of money that she's accumulated, and Daniel, her main guardian, is also in charge of investing her money.
That's right. So what was like the creative process you used for this book? Was there, research or outlining or things?
A little bit of research. Yeah, mostly it was just me letting my imagination run wild. What would it be like to work with a vampire, for example, a beautiful creature like Fiona? What would it be like to live with a vampire, someone who, whose schedule depends on, you basically do everything for them to keep them alive. And, so what would motivate Daniel to do that other than the money? Certainly, there's a lot. He's very well paid millions, but I think he's also a bit smitten with Fiona, and maybe secretly wants something more out of the relationship. But inspired by what I'm really inspired by this, I think I've been reading a lot of vampire literature and watching a lot of vampire content on TV and in films, and I noticed there are very few alpha female vampires. In fact, I think most of us can only name one. We know the vampire from Anne Rice's book, Queen of the Damned. Very few of us can actually remember her name, Akasha, who was played memorably by the late singer Aaliyah in the 2000 film version. But really, that's the main one. It's hard to find another alpha female vampire out there. And so I thought, I wanted to create one, see where this goes.
That's cool. You know, I have to admit, sadly, I haven't read that Anne Rice book. I need to read it.
Yeah.
To see that other angle, but
Well, I consider her kind of a leading light, if you will, among sort of modern Gothic or vampire stories. I think she's really one of the best out there, and certainly the three vampire stories that made up the Vampire Chronicles, Interview, Lestat, and Queen of the Damned, are a very good trilogy. And so that also, I guess you could say, partly inspired me because I like the world she created. She was the first, I believe, at least in my thinking, to create vampires who are emotionally complex, which is what I try to do. And they also live in a world where it appears the world has been abandoned by God. And so there are these questions about our place in the universe, humans and other creatures. And I just liked her approach. And so I almost wanted to, I mean, what I've written is not anything remotely like Anne Rice, but I did kind of feel that I was trying to build a little bit upon the world that she created.
So do you have any favorite moments in the book, like certain scenes that, you know, just really compelled you, and even like certain moments that were really difficult, like, oh, I can't push through this scene, but you found a way?
In Fiona's Guardians?
Yeah.
So I did something really interesting. I wrote I think it was a couple of years ago, a chapter that in my way is a tribute to Bram Stoker, author of Dracula. And if you remember Dracula, the book is written mostly in journal entries, ship logs, letters, that sort of thing. It's an epistolary novel. And so what I wanted to do is I created a chapter where the mortal enemies of my vampire characters, Mors Strige, a very old Catholic vampire hunting SWAT team, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah.
We go back to their history a little bit, and in 1900 they have this battle with the vampires, who include Fiona and Fiona's creator Agrippina, outside of a crypt in Campoleone, Italy, south of Rome. And this chapter, Epistles, is in the middle of the book, and it's all letters written by abbots and monks in the field who are fighting the vampires to their boss, who's a cardinal back in Rome. And we get a real feel for this organization, Mors Strige, and their dedication to their cause. But even more important, when you're talking about the lower rank people, the rank and file, I liked portraying their own loyalty and love for each other. They're really fighting for the person to the left and to the right of them, you know, kind of like any military organization, I guess. And so I really enjoyed writing that. And it's probably my favorite chapter in the book.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
It added so much depth to the book. And one fascinating thing I found about your novel is I never found myself just rooting for one individual. There was part of me that supported Mors Strige. I pronounced it awfully there, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I was supporting them at times, and then Fiona at times, and then, you know, it was very unique. Usually when I read a book, there's somebody very specific that I root for, but this one I couldn't decide. That was fascinating.
And I'll reveal, as the writer, I also had a hard time taking sides. Yeah. In the end, I admire Fiona. I liked her. I liked the character Daniel. And you know, if I had to choose a side, I would lean toward them, of course, because I spent so much time with those characters. But the Mors Strige guys, I just found so interesting. I think it helped me make a compelling story.
So again on that, so what was a period where you were like really struggling? You're like, man, I can't figure out this scene. And then how did you find the solution for it?
For the epistles scene, or
any part of the book? Was there any part where you're like, man, this is difficult, and then you push through that block?
Now, I assume a lot of writers go through this. You know, at some point you're writing, you're creating a story, has a plot, and you're moving that plot along, and the character's arc is progressing, and then suddenly everything stops. You run out of gas. Or at least that was my experience. And this happened with virtually every chapter. And so that's fine. This is, I think, natural. you've put out, and now you need to put back in to get more inspiration. And so I find it useful to go look at art, to listen to music. And if I'm thinking of something like a vampire story or any kind of gothic horror, maybe listening to Baroque music or looking at gothic art, pre-Raphaelite kind of artwork, or statues by Bernini or whatever. And that can kind of feed my creative juices and get me thinking again about how to create this book. A side note that's related to this topic is, and I actually would like other writers to consider doing this, you don't have to bite off the entire project, a novel all at once. You can put out chapters that stand alone as short stories, which I did. Fiona and Daniel first met the world in a 2017 short story that was published by Crack the Spine, a literary journal, issue 209, I think. And that's where it started. I've been thinking about creating a story about a human who lives with a vampire and who works with her, and maybe he's a little bit in love with her. And then I just decided, put that story out there, see what kind of reaction you get. And it got good reviews by some book bloggers out there. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll write another one. And then another standalone piece that could be a chapter in the book. And then I did another, and so on. And then I began to stitch these chapters together, and I realized I had half a novel. And now I just pretty much had to write the other half, which eventually it happened. It took me 4 years, but it was well worth the wait, I think.
So are you more the pantser type of writer, or do you enjoy outlining it all? Do you find that useful ever?
I am a pantser. I try to outline. I find outlining to be more of a left brain kind of exercise. Yeah. And I think I have a fairly weak left brain. the right is really dominant with me. So I would rather spend time just letting things steep and looking for little details that I can weave in, and just adding layer upon layer of content, including emotional tension and whatever, to get a story that eventually works. And eventually the plot, once you have characters who have motivations, that sort of suggests where the plot will go. They're going to lead that journey once you have well-developed characters. So this has been my approach. I admire people who can outline and even do a synopsis at the end, which explains everything in chapter detail. But I'm just not that guy.
So would you say Fiona was your favorite character, or Daniel? What was your favorite amongst all the group?
Well, you're asking me to choose from among my children.
I know, that's what it feels like, huh?
Yeah, but I do admire Fiona greatly. There's also a few chapters. There are also a few chapters with Agrippina, the one who creates Fiona.
Right.
And I just finished writing this weekend, yesterday, a short story that'll be a chapter in the forthcoming new edition of FIONA'S Guardians. There's going to be a hardback edition this fall, this October, and put up by my publisher, the same publisher, Burton Mayer's Books. And this will have a couple of extras, two extra chapters, which could lead to the sequel. I'm also going to have an intro there and stuff. But I spent a lot of time thinking about Agrippina, who is one of my favorite characters. She's not in the book all that much in the current edition, but I always felt like the door was left open where we could explore this philosopher vampire, if you will, someone who teaches Fiona how to survive, but also how to coexist with nature. So I also fell in love with Agrippina. And so I have this story, which I'm very proud of, that I think will be something that readers will look forward to in October.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Thanks.
So on the topic of vampires,
mm-hmm.
There was a time when they were really scary, and it seems like they've shifted more into like fantasy genres and whatnot. And they're still a lot of fun. We love them, but they're not as mysterious and scary anymore. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, where do you think the future of the vampire story is going?
I think that they just lend themselves, these mythical creatures lend themselves to any kind of interpretation. You know, it's not so long ago, maybe 50 or 60 years ago, we had a movie about vampires in space, you know, and I assume people will be writing about that again. Or you could take the Richard Matheson approach to, you know, to vampires in I Am Legend, where they really are bloodthirsty monsters, you know.
Yeah.
I lean toward the more emotionally complex vampires that I think Anne Rice should take credit for creating or popularizing. I lean toward that a little bit more. I like stories about where human characteristics, it's all about the human characteristics, no matter what the creature, you know, that they seem human, that I try to make them relatable to the average reader. And that's exactly what I tried to do with Fiona, with Soren Felenius, and all the other vampires out there in the book.
Awesome. So what can we look forward to in the future from you, Dan? What other projects you got down the road?
Well, I am trying hard to get some people interested in writing a screenplay and or a teleplay, whatever, to have some sort of visual representation on screen of my characters, of my story, Fiona's Guardians. The book has been adapted once by a professional theater company, Artists Ensemble Theater, for their Mysterious Journey podcast. That came out last October. And when I realized that professional actors could go in, and a professional playwright could go in and convert my novel and do a really good job with it, I thought, gosh, where else can we take this? So
Yeah.
I am thinking of other media now for this story. At the same time, I think my publisher would like me to write a sequel. And so the 2 new chapters that I'm including in the hardback edition this fall will sort of point the direction for me. And I'm hoping that I won't take another 4 years to write the sequel. I'm pretty sure my publisher feels that way too. So,
you know, when I was reading it, it felt like it'd be like a really cool mini series or something. Came across that way to me.
Yes, for me too. When I was writing it, even I felt like, gosh, couldn't this be a bingeable Netflix series or something?
Yes,
like that, you know,
exactly.
So that is one of my goals.
Awesome. Hope you get there on that one.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about like some of your other hobbies. You know, you work with NPR, and what other things do you enjoy?
I like reading. I love going out for walks. I love animal life, so I spend a lot of time, you know, feeding the critters and the birds, and you know, around my house and stuff like that. I find that relaxing. I will say that my work for W9J, being a morning news host and a newscaster, is rather consuming. I mean, it takes a lot of my energy, so I spend the rest of the day kind of recharging my batteries. But if I ever retire from that, maybe I'll try to be a serious cook. I really try. I try to cook. I enjoy cooking, but I know I'm not anything that I make, Gordon Ramsay would throw it back in my face. I want to get his approval for like an omelet or something, you know, that I make.
I admire you guys that can cook that well. I burn my tuna helper almost every time I try to make it. So it's amazing, those guys that can get out there and cook. So
yeah, you're right. I admire it, and I love food, so I want to see if I can one day improve, raise my game.
Cool. So where tell us where people can find Fiona's Guardians.
I would love for people to go to their independent bookstore and order it. It's available via Ingram or any other distributor. In the UK, they have Gardner's. You know, I love the idea of supporting independent bookstores. I've sort of wrapped myself in the mantle of independent bookstores during the last couple of months, as more and more small local mom and pop shops started ordering my book and carrying it for stock. So it's available in, I think, 5 bookstores in the UK and about 20 bookstores in the US. If they don't have it in stock, order it. Support your local bookstore, because I think they really do a great job in the community. Having said that, a lot of people have a Kindle, really enjoy using that, and are reading and storing their entire library on a little device. So my book is available. Fiona's Guardians is available on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes and Noble online. Let's see, where else? The biggest bookstore chain in the UK, Waterstones, available in Australia at Dymocks, I think. So yeah, it's available out. It's out there. Most people will probably go to Amazon because, well, they make it very convenient to buy books or anything really.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing all the various places for us. So now it's time for my favorite part of the whole video.
Mhm.
You willing to read an excerpt for us then?
I would love to, yeah. So let me just do a quick intro here. Most of this book, Fiona's Guardians, is told from the human guardians who work for Fiona over the decades. And we hear them from going back to the early 20th century. But Fiona does address the reader directly on a handful of occasions, including right at the beginning of the book. Hello, mortal. I'm touched by your interest in those who work for me and those who used to. A handful truly deserve to be remembered in a book that never goes out of print. Their loyalty and talent are the reason I've existed for 2.5 centuries. A few, however, earned the painful and premature deaths detailed in these pages. For me, loyalty comes first and must be constant. That's not to say a partnership with me can't end in mutual agreement. It just never happened before. Still, I may allow my current guardian to retire. After serving longer than any other, he might well live his remaining years in a manner of his choosing. This would create an opportunity for another to earn his substantial salary and benefits. But a warning is in order. The work is as relentless and unsparing as my hunger, and everyone I employed has murdered at least once on my behalf. Not that this is the preferred option. There are other, less extreme ways to obtain blood for me, and Daniel built a robust network that can be handed off to a successor. He's in the car now, looking at his watch, wondering when we can go home to his decanter of scotch. From what I see, nothing in your cabinet would satisfy him, so rest assured I won't leave with any of your bottles. I see you've been reading job postings. Do not ask if I offer a retirement plan. In truth, I've never understood the concept. Each evening I awake knowing I'm the chief executive for extending my life, so ceasing work would amount to suicide. But this is what Daniel wants, and I owe him for that time he saved me from dying. It's in the book. My favorite chapters feature Agrippina, the one who created me. Driven by hunger, she brought me to the edge of death, but changed her mind when I started turning blue. She claimed she saw something worth preserving, a simple, unselfish nature that disappeared when she opened a vein for me. Since that moment, the only feeling I've known, besides adoration for her, is a craving that never ceases. That is, until the instant I tasted regret, the perpetual pain of guilt at not being with her when our enemies reappeared. They're in here too, and so is my revenge. Go ahead, indulge your curiosity. When you finish reading, I'll visit again and make myself visible. You'll find me sitting in that chair over there, and we can talk about your future. Until then.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
The author himself. Another thing I loved about your book, Dan, is the dialogue between characters, crackled with life. It felt like a real exchange. You encapsulated the personalities of each character so well. That's another great highlight from your book.
Thank you. I worked very hard on that. And, I think it's a result of, I'm not an actor, but I do kind of think a little bit like an actor when I create my characters and I have them speak. I really want them to tell you something unique about themselves and their motivation. And once you figure out a character's motivation, it becomes much easier to have them interact with another character.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Something the beginning writers can learn a lot through reading your books. See how to do that dialogue. So I
All right,
learned a lot from reading it. So
let's make it a signed reading, shall we?
That's right. But yeah, thank you so much for linking up with me and having this conversation. And
Alan, I've had a great time today, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
no problem. Thank you, Dan. So I hope you enjoyed my talk with Dan Klefstad, the author of Fiona's Guardians. Please like, comment, and share this video to support this talented author. And this has been the Dark Sire's Creative Nook on YouTube. See you next time.